Be quiet for a moment before another thought rushes in, before fear starts building stories about tomorrow, before your mind runs ahead searching for answers. Just become still, not because life around you is calm, but because truth can only be heard when the noise inside you settles down. Worry has never truly solved anything. It has never created wisdom, peace, or clarity. It only drains energy while pretending to be responsibility. Scripture asks, which of you by worrying can add anything to your life? That question is not meant to shame you. It is meant to wake you up. Worry is simply effort directed the wrong way. What is being offered to you is not temporary comfort or empty positivity. It is a deeper understanding of how life actually works. Living without worry does not mean challenges disappear. It means you stop believing you must carry the entire weight of existence on your own shoulders. There is already an intelligence guiding life itself. The same unseen power that grows trees from tiny seeds, moves planets without struggle, and keeps your heart beating while you sleep is also present within you. It has never abandoned you. When Scripture says, be still and know, it is pointing you towards surrender, not weakness. Stillness is not doing nothing. It is releasing the false belief that you must force every outcome yourself. Worry begins when you assume complete control belongs to you. Faith begins when you realize it never did. Most people are exhausted because they keep carrying burdens that were never theirs to hold. They try to fix life only from the surface level of the mind, while the deeper solution already exists beneath the noise. Look at the example of Jesus. He did not panic when difficulties appeared. In the middle of storms, he remained calm. When lack showed up, he gave thanks before anything changed. When pressure increased, he withdrew into silence instead of fear. That was not weakness or avoidance. It was alignment. He understood that the deeper power within was already working. This is the secret that removes worry from its roots. You are not meant to force reality into place. Your role is to choose the inner state you live from. The deeper intelligence of life handles the unfolding. Anxiety starts the moment you try to control every result from a limited perspective. But divine intelligence is not limited. It sees what you cannot see. Every time you worry, you silently declare that you do not trust the process guiding your life. Every time you relax into faith, you declare that there is a higher order already moving things into place. Faith is not blind hope that things might improve somehow. Faith is inner agreement with the reality you choose to embody. To cast your burden upon God does not mean repeating desperate words while remaining inwardly tense. It means letting go of the state of fear itself, because the state you live in shapes your experience. Worry is a state built on the assumption that you are unsupported, unsafe, and alone. And every state recreates more of itself. Change the inner state and your outer experience begins reorganizing around it. This is why worry feels normal to so many people. They confuse anxiety with responsibility. But responsibility does not mean panic. True responsibility is maintaining the right inner posture. Your task is alignment. The outcome belongs to something greater than your limited mind. The moment you try to take over both roles, suffering begins. Not because you are being punished, but because you have moved out of harmony with life. Peace comes when you begin feeling supported instead of threatened. Science even reflects this principle. Systems work best when there is less interference and more coherence. The body responds the same way. Trust relaxes the nervous system. Fear tightens it. Your body recognizes truth before your mind fully understands it. Worry is not wisdom. It is simply forgetting where your real support comes from. Allowing God to handle your problems does not mean you stop taking action. It means you stop feeding situations with fear. Fear is imagination focused on painful possibilities, and imagination is creative. Whatever you repeatedly hold in consciousness with emotion slowly takes form. Worry is imagination used against yourself. Faith is imagination placed back into alignment. When Jesus said not to worry about tomorrow, he was not encouraging carelessness. He was teaching mastery over attention. Tomorrow is shaped by the state you occupy today. If your mind is filled with trust now, tomorrow carries that order forward. If your mind stays trapped in fear, confusion continues repeating itself. The goal is not to stop thinking altogether. The goal is to purify the direction of thought. Whenever a problem appears, pause before reacting. Instead of spiraling into fear, return inwardly to stillness. Quietly remind yourself, this burden is not mine to carry alone. A greater intelligence is already working on this. Then relax. That relaxation is not laziness. It is trust expressed through the body and mind. You do not need dramatic emotions or perfect certainty. You only need release. Release from pressure, urgency, and the illusion that everything depends entirely on you. The moment you let go, something deeper begins moving. The deeper mind is not trapped by logic or limitation. It can arrange people, opportunities, timing, and answers in ways your conscious mind could never predict. This is why solutions often appear unexpectedly. Not because they came from nowhere, but because you finally stopped blocking them with resistance. Worry keeps your attention locked onto the problem. Trust shifts your attention toward resolution. That is why gratitude is so powerful. Gratitude is not just politeness, it is alignment. When you give thanks before seeing the result, you are declaring confidence in the unseen process already unfolding behind the scenes. You are not here to obsess over how life will solve every issue. Your role is to stop interfering with fear. Take the action you need to take. Make the call, show up, move forward, handle your responsibilities. But do it without inner panic. Action guided by trust carries strength. Action driven by anxiety drains the soul. So begin living differently. The next time a challenge appears, notice your first reaction. Does your body tighten? Does fear rush in? Do not judge yourself for it. Simply choose again. Remind yourself that there is a wisdom greater than your own already handling what you cannot see. Then rest in that knowing. Real rest is not sleeping, it is inner agreement with peace. As this becomes your way of life, something remarkable starts happening. Problems lose their emotional grip on you before they even disappear externally. Situations may still exist for a time, but they no longer control your spirit. And freedom begins the moment fear no longer rules your inner world. Peace returns first, and everything else begins to follow. Resolution always comes after peace, never before it. As you begin to understand this, you will slowly learn to trust life again, not with blind hope, but with deeper awareness. You will start seeing that delays are not punishments, obstacles are not accidents, and uncertainty is not chaos. Everything has a place within a larger order. Nothing is wasted and nothing requires your fear in order to unfold correctly. So let this become part of the way you live every day, not as a forced routine, but as a quiet inner posture. Whenever worry appears, you no longer wrestle with it or feed it. You replace it with trust. You gently remind yourself, I release this into the hands of the intelligence guiding my life. Then you breathe deeply, and in that breath you reconnect with peace. That is how worry truly disappears. Not because you suppress it, but because it eventually loses its purpose. Trust takes its place naturally. As these words fade into silence, remain still for a moment. Not waiting desperately, not hoping anxiously, but resting in the truth that you are supported. You are guided. There is a wisdom carrying your life that does not fail. Let that greater power handle what it was always meant to handle and allow yourself to finally feel free. Now let this truth move beyond something you simply hear and become something you actually live. Worry does not exist in language alone. It survives through patterns and habits are not broken through force. They disappear through understanding. The mind has been conditioned to believe that staying tense somehow creates safety. It assumes that if it keeps preparing for the worst, it can avoid pain. But tension has never been true protection. Real protection comes through alignment. Look at nature itself. The heart beats effortlessly. The lungs breathe without strain. The stars move in perfect rhythm without anxiety. Nothing essential survives through fear and over-control. Neither do you. So when worry shows up again, and sometimes it will, understand that it does not mean you are failing. It simply means an old habit is losing its hold on you. This time, meet it differently. Do not argue with it. Do not criticize yourself for feeling it. Do not turn it into drama. Simply recognize it as a reminder that you have momentarily forgotten where the real support comes from. Then gently return. Return to the feeling of being held. Return to the assumption that life is still working in order. Return to the quiet awareness that something greater is already active beyond what you can currently see. That returning is prayer. Not empty repetition of words, but living prayer. Prayer expressed through trust, surrender, and inner peace. When Scripture says to pray continually, it is not asking you to constantly speak. It is asking you to remain inwardly aligned. And alignment feels like relief. You will begin noticing something powerful. The moment you release worry, clarity often appears. A solution enters your mind. The next step becomes easier to see. Conversations soften. Situations lose their intensity. This is not coincidence. A tense mind cannot receive guidance clearly. Openness creates space for wisdom to enter. This is why Jesus often asked people questions before healing them. He was not searching for information. He was shifting their awareness away from fear and back toward belief. Belief is not simply agreeing with an idea intellectually. Belief is giving life permission to move through you in a higher way. And every time you choose trust over fear, you strengthen peace within yourself. What you practice repeatedly becomes natural. Over time, worry stops lingering the way it once did. It may appear briefly, but it no longer takes over your mind. Eventually, it loses its authority completely because your inner center has become stronger than the habit itself. Trusting does not make you careless. It makes you deeply responsible in the right way. You are learning the balance between what belongs to you and what does not. You take action where action is needed, but you stop trying to control what was never yours to control. This balance creates a life that feels guided instead of forced, and guided lives unfold with far less exhaustion. Carry this understanding into ordinary moments, into conversations, decisions, waiting seasons, and responsibilities that once felt overwhelming. Let stillness become your first response. Let trust become your second. Then let action rise naturally from clarity instead of fear. At night, stop replaying problems before sleep. Instead, rest in peace. Quietly tell yourself it is already being handled, not as a desperate request, but as a calm declaration. Then allow sleep to deepen that assumption, because the deeper intelligence within you works best when you stop interfering with fear and overthinking. Morning will always bring what is needed for the next step. It always has. So be patient with yourself while this new way of living grows stronger. You are not trying to erase years of conditioning overnight. You are gradually outgrowing it, and growth happens naturally. Be still whenever you remember. Trust whenever you can. And when you forget, simply return again. Nothing truly meant for you can ever be lost. Life has never stopped working on your behalf. You were only asked to become quiet long enough to notice it. Rest in that truth. The burden was never yours alone to carry. And eventually you realize something even deeper. Worry was never truly about circumstances. It was about identity. Fear whispers, "What if I cannot handle this?" Faith answers, "I was never meant to handle everything alone." That realization changes everything. Most people were taught that strength means carrying every burden by themselves, that maturity means constant tension, and that responsibility means endless pressure. But divine wisdom teaches the opposite. True strength is alignment. True maturity is trust. True responsibility is understanding where your role ends. When Jesus said, come to me all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest," he was speaking to exhausted minds, not tired bodies. He was speaking to people overwhelmed by control and false responsibility. Real rest is not just physical sleep. It is release into a higher intelligence that already sees the full picture while you can only see one small part of it. You see only the fragment. God sees the design. That is why worry is always incomplete. It imagines the future without including divine intelligence in the process. Faith includes God in the equation, and when you do that, panic begins to lose its logic. You stop asking, "How will this work out?" and begin living from the assumption that it is already unfolding in the right way. That single shift changes everything. Your nervous system softens. Your mind becomes clearer. Your heart opens again. Trust is not naive optimism, it is understanding spiritual law. The law that inner alignment eventually reshapes outer experience. The law that consciousness shapes reality. The law that when resistance is released, wisdom flows naturally. Worry fades because eventually it no longer makes sense. You cannot fully trust and fully fear at the same time. One replaces the other. Slowly, trust becomes your natural state. Not because life becomes perfect, but because your inner center is no longer shaken by every circumstance. You may still care deeply, but you no longer spiral. You still make plans, but without desperation. You still act, but fear no longer controls your actions. This is the freedom Jesus lived from. He was never dominated by appearances because he understood the source behind all things. Now you are beginning to discover that same understanding in your own life, not as imitation, but as realization. You are no longer waiting for God to begin working. That work has already begun. Your only task is to stop blocking it with fear. Worry creates resistance. Faith creates flow, and flow feels lighter. Even your conversations begin to change. You stop repeating problems constantly and begin speaking more about direction and possibility. Not fake positivity, but calm expectation. And expectation is powerful. What you calmly expect with confidence quietly prepares the path ahead. That is why Scripture says, "Let the peace of God rule in your heart." To rule means to lead. Peace is not just an emotion that occasionally visits you. It is a principle that can guide your entire life. Let peace guide your pace through life. Let peace shape your reactions, your decisions, and even the moment you realize you've done enough for today. When peace leads your inner world, worry loses its place completely. If there is something unresolved in your life right now, something your mind keeps replaying over and over, stop fighting it. Place it quietly into stillness. Say within yourself, calmly and sincerely, "I release this." Not as giving up, but as an act of trust. Then bring your attention back to what is here now, this breath, this step, this present moment. Divine intelligence does not exist in imagined futures. It works through the eternal now. Solutions rise from presence, not panic. As you practice this, you will begin to notice life responding differently. Not because you finally worried the right way, but because you stopped resisting the order already moving beneath everything. You were never meant to carry the entire weight of life by yourself. You were meant to align with the wisdom already carrying it. So stay gentle with yourself. When fear speaks loudly, soften instead of tightening. When pressure rises, return inward again and again until one day you realize worry has lost its grip on you. Not because life suddenly became perfect, but because you became anchored in something deeper than circumstances. Anchored in trust. Anchored in the understanding that you are not alone and never have been. Slowly, you begin to feel something settle inside you. Life itself is not working against you. The tension you carried for so long was never the weight of reality, but the strain of resisting it. When resistance falls away, life feels clearer. Challenges no longer seem like signs of abandonment. They become invitations to trust more deeply. Worry only survives when you believe chaos sits at the center of life. But now you are beginning to see something else. Beneath appearances, there is order, there is intelligence, there is timing and purpose unfolding in ways your mind cannot fully predict. This understanding does not make you passive, it makes you present. Instead of scattering your energy across imagined futures, you gather it back into this moment. And in this moment, you always have enough for the next step. You find the clarity you need for today, the strength required for what is in front of you, and the grace for what has not yet appeared. Grace is not something added later. It is already here once resistance fades away. This is why Jesus taught people to stay with the present day instead of carrying tomorrow's burdens ahead of time. The future does not require your fear in advance. It only asks for your presence now. Worry feeds on imagined disasters, imagined failures, and imagined losses. Presence dissolves those illusions and brings your mind back into alignment. Over time, you will notice how quickly you return to peace. What once controlled your thoughts for hours now passes like clouds moving across the sky. This is not suppression, it is mastery. Mastery does not remove storms from life. It teaches you that you are not the storm itself. Your inner world becomes steadier. You stop waking up braced for problems. You move through your day with less tension. You sleep with less mental noise because something fundamental has changed inside you. You no longer believe that worry is necessary for survival. You no longer believe tension equals responsibility. Instead, release becomes your new practice. Quietly, moment by moment, you release the need to control timing. You release the obsession with knowing exactly how everything will unfold. You release the habit of replaying what cannot be changed. And every release creates more space. Space for wisdom, space for peace, space for solutions to appear naturally. You will notice answers often arrive when you stop chasing them. A simple thought becomes clear. A conversation shifts unexpectedly. A door opens without force. This is not coincidence. It is what happens when your mind is no longer blocked by fear. Surrender is not weakness. It is cooperation with a higher intelligence already at work. You are not surrendering your life. You are surrendering false control. And false control was the real source of exhaustion all along. So when challenges come, pause before reacting. Breathe before analyzing. Quietly remind yourself, this is not mine to carry alone. Then take the next simple step in front of you. Nothing more, nothing less. Life does not require dramatic effort. It asks for alignment. You will still care deeply about your life, your relationships, and your responsibilities, but care is different from worry. Care is calm, attentive, and grounded. Worry is fear pretending to be love. Trust slowly replaces that fear because you finally see clearly that worry never protected you. Now your inner world feels quieter, not empty, but spacious. In that space, wisdom has room to move. Decisions become simpler. You stop forcing certainty before taking action. You begin trusting the natural sequence of life. You realize everything was never meant to be solved at once. Only the next step matters, and the next step is always manageable. Even your relationship with the past begins to change. Regret softens. Old failures lose their power over you. You stop speaking to yourself with punishment in your voice. You understand that even difficult seasons carried lessons you needed. Nothing was wasted. Peace becomes your compass now. If a thought pulls you away from peace, you let it go. If something brings clarity and steadiness, you follow it. This is not avoidance. It is wisdom in action. As you continue living this way, life begins to flow more naturally. You stop forcing conversations and outcomes. You stop trying to control every detail. You move with what is given, trusting that clarity arrives step by step. That is how divine intelligence leads, not by revealing the entire future at once, but by illuminating what matters right now. So if part of you is still holding on tightly, still trying to carry everything alone, hear this gently. You do not have to. There is a wisdom greater than your fear and a care deeper than your understanding. You are allowed to rest inside it. When the world feels loud, return to stillness. When the future feels uncertain, choose trust again. Not because you are trying to appear spiritual, but because you have finally realized what truly works. Worry never brought peace. Trust always does. You are not behind in life. You are not failing. You are being guided more than you realize. Peace is not something you earn after solving every problem. Peace is the foundation from which solutions emerge. So let your body soften. Let your mind grow quiet. Let your heart remain open instead of guarded. You do not need to understand every outcome before moving forward. You only need to know where your responsibility ends, and it ends with alignment. From there, life unfolds naturally, intelligently, and faithfully without panic or force. What is meant for you will not miss you. What is already being handled does not require your worry to succeed. Peace begins the moment you stop carrying burdens that were never yours to hold. Life was never asking you to control every outcome, only to remain aligned with trust instead of fear. Worry fades when you finally understand that divine intelligence is already working behind every delay, challenge, and unanswered question. The more you release the need to force life, the more clearly you see that you are guided, supported, and never alone. True freedom comes not from solving everything, but from resting in the quiet certainty that it is already being handled.